We're back with our chief international correspondent, Christiane Amanpour, and Professor Stephen Cohen of New York University. I want you to respond to what Christiane said, Professor Cohen, but I want to read to you what Peter Baker, the New York Times reporter, wrote in the lead story in the New York Times today. Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany told Mr. Obama by telephone on Sunday that after speaking with Mr. Putin, she was not sure he was in touch with reality. People briefed on the call said, in another world, she said. Is she right?
I don't know if it's an accurate report, but let's remember she said that about President George Bush in 2010 when Bush tried to fast-track Ukraine into NATO, and she stopped it. What I do know is this. Putin doesn't trust Obama, doesn't think he's a resolute leader, doesn't think he can negotiate with him definitively. He trusts Merkel. He speaks with her in German. They have a certain rapport. I would doubt very seriously that that was Merkel's end of the story, and I hope it isn't, because I think Merkel is now one of the key players in ending this crisis, if it can be ended.
It looks to me, Christiane, like there's a split developing between Chancellor Merkel and the President of the United States when it comes to what to do towards Russia and Ukraine.
Well, we really do have to see how this plays out in terms of unity in the West. But I think Professor Cohen's right. Merkel does have the closest relationship and the most intricate business and every other way relationship with Russia. So she is a very big player. But I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, I just wonder whether Professor Cohen thinks Putin has overreacted. Look, we know whether it's in the playpen when we're in kids, whether it's in school, whether it's in the workplace, whether we join the military, and certainly on the international stage, there are rules of engagement. Putin has signed up, or rather Russia has signed up, to protecting the territorial integrity of Ukraine. It was done under the Budapest Agreement in '94 and along with the US and the UK. I mean, this is an international reality, and unless we're ready to see these precedents set, surely there must be some way to negotiate a way back from this brink, obviously protecting the rights of the ethnic Russians in Crimea and elsewhere as well.
Go ahead, Professor.
There is a way out, but not until we recognize a reality. Putin is not a thug. He's not trying to recreate the Soviet Union. What he is a historic Russian national leader. He's the most consequential leader of the early 21st century. He believes, rightly or wrongly, that he has a mission mandated by history, to take Russia, which collapsed in 1991, and had collapsed in 1917, and to restore its greatness at home, whatever that means. And that includes securing its traditional zones of security. That means Ukraine. Putin said 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my red line, you remember Obama's red lines? My red line is former Soviet Georgia. We had a war there in 2008, and Ukraine. He has told us exactly what he thought. And until we take that into account, the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be NATO troops on the border of western Ukraine, and Putin's troops will flood into eastern Ukraine, and then all bets are off.
Go ahead, Christiane.
Well, look, obviously Putin has his mission, and he clearly does see himself in the way that Professor Cohen just outlined. But here's the thing, you know, obviously there's been, a major sort of argument over Ukraine. But Putin and the Russians have, by treaty, their big Black Sea fleet in Sebastopol in the Crimea. There was no indication that the new Ukrainian government was going to change that reality at all. And you say that Putin has telegraphed, what his aims are, and that he's not a thug. Well, look, I would like you to explain to me how he and us can justify the trumping up of this hysteria in the Crimea, which has given the Russians the ability to do what they're doing. Whether it was the trumped-up change of government in the Crimean parliament, whether it was the trumped-up call by this government for Russians to come in and protect them when they were not being killed, Professor Cohen. There was no violence in the Crimea. Whether it was the horrendous, and I've done a lot of reporting on hate speech and nationalistic speech and on incitement to war and hatred, and the state Russian media is very bad right now on this. No, this is the facts. And now you have the Duma debating an annexation law. All of this is trumped up to provide Putin with what you say, and that is his desire to protect their interests and to keep his sphere of influence.
Professor Cohen.
The extremism didn't come from Russia. It was coming from western Ukraine. We've left a large part of the story out. There's a small but resolute and determined right-wing nationalist movement in Ukraine. It's quasi-fascist, and it is dictating terms to this parliament in Kiev, which is not legitimate in law, international, or constitutional. This parliament, which is a rump parliament because they banned the two majority parties that represented the East, have been passing anti-Russian legislation. They banned the use of Russian as an official language. It isn't Russia that's been spewing this ideological, destabilizing message. It's been coming from the West. And here the worst part is that hatred has been supported by Washington and Brussels in embracing this West Ukrainian movement. That must stop.
We're up against the clock, unfortunately, but to be continued. An excellent conversation, Professor Cohen. Christiane Amanpour, thanks very much. And on that last point, you heard Vitaly Churkin, the Russian ambassador to the UN Security Council, saying earlier today that at fault for all of this are what he called fascists and anti-Semites in Ukraine right now. To be continued.
You've got to be really careful putting that across as a fact.
That's what Vitaly Churkin.
He may have done.
That's what he said.
That is the Russian position. He may have done.
That's what I was pointing out.
But are you telling me? Are you saying that the entire pro-European Ukrainians are anti-Semites? But that is what the Russians are saying.
I'm only saying what Vitaly Churkin.
That's what the Russians are saying.
He said,
and that's what Professor Cohen is saying.
Professor Cohen say it, and I was just pointing out that a Russian official at the United Nations today said, who's responsible for all of this? Fascists and anti-Semites in Ukraine. Am I saying that? No, I'm not. But I am saying that that's what Vitaly Churkin said.
And we have to be very careful.
We'll play it for you. We played it for you earlier.
No, I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard it. We just, as a network, have to be really careful not to lump the entire pro-European Ukrainians into what some may well be, which are nationalistic and extremist. So that's all I'm saying.
Hey guys, I'm an outsider. I hate to see a civil war break out on CNN.
It's not a civil war. It's smart conversation. All right, guys. To be continued. And I certainly wasn't lumping all of the pro-Ukrainian elements. I was only pointing out what
at least we've got that straight.
What Vitaly Churkin said.
We're in the Situation Room, man.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll take a quick break. Much more at the top.
Put it on the air and call it.